In this video, we're going to take a look at how to do unit conversions using proportions. There's more than one way to do unit conversions, but we are going to particularly use proportions to practice that skill. So one thing we're going to learn is that as long as we have the conversion factor, we'll be able to set up any proportion to do any conversion we want. So the first, let's do this by example. So the first example we have here is that we have 8 pounds and we want to figure out how many ounces that is. So the first thing I need to know is the conversion factor, and that's what tells me the relationship between the number of pounds and the number of ounces. And what I know is that 1 pound equals 16 ounces, and this will usually be given to you when you're given this type of problem. So that's the factor that we're going to work with. So I'm going to set up a proportion to help me solve this. I'm going to start with the information that's given to me in the problem. That's that 8 pounds needs to be converted to an unknown number of ounces. On the right side of the proportion here, the ratio that I'm going to set up is the conversion factor. And the conversion factor is that 1 pound is equivalent to 16 ounces. Okay? So once I have this proportion set up, the next thing I need to do is, and you can think back to when you did proportions, cross multiply to solve it. So if I cross multiply here, I get 8 times 16. If I cross multiply here, I get 1x. You can go ahead and multiply 8 times 16. That's going to give you 128 ounces, because remember, that's what we were solving for. We were solving for ounces. So 8 pounds is then equivalent to 128 ounces. In this next example, we'll go ahead and try converting from feet to miles. And again, we'll find that the process is very similar as long as you know the conversion factor. So the conversion factor is going to be here that 1 mile is equivalent to 5,280 feet. That's the factor we're going to use. Let's practice setting up our proportions. So I like to start with the information in the problem on the left side of the proportion. So the information in the problem is that 15,840 feet needs to be converted to x miles. The conversion factor would go on the right, and the conversion factor is that 5,280 feet is equivalent to 1 mile. Your proportion is now set up. You cross multiply to solve. So let's go ahead and cross multiply this. When I do that, I get that 15,840 times 1 is equal to 5,280x. So this is the proportion you have. Comes out to be that equation. 15,840 times 1 is just 15,840. To solve this proportion for x, you're going to divide both sides by 5,280. When you do that, you get an x of 3. So remember, we were converting to miles. X stood for miles. So we now know that 15,840 feet is equivalent to 3 miles. This next example, we're going to compare, or rather convert 5.3 meters to millimeters. So the last two examples we worked with pounds, ounces, feet, miles. That's known as the American system. In these next couple of examples, we're going to work with meters, centimeters, liters, centiliters, that type of thing. That's called the metric system. The conversions, as long as you know the conversion factor, you set up a proportion the same way. And in class, we might talk a little bit more about the differences between the two systems. But right now, we're just interested in how to set up a proportion and solve it. So I'm going to give you the conversion factor here. The conversion factor is that 1 meter is equivalent to 1,000 millimeters. So if you know that, you can set up your proportion here. And I like to start with the information in the problem on the left. So that information is that 5.3 meters needs to be converted to an x number of millimeters. On the right goes the conversion factor. The conversion factor is that 1 meter is equivalent to 1,000 millimeters. You then cross multiply to solve. So when you cross multiply this, you get 5.3 times 1000 equals 1x. When you finish solving for x, go ahead and multiply 5.3 times 1000, that's 5,300. So you now know that 1 meter is equivalent to 5,300 millimeters. This next example, we're going to go from centiliters to liters. And in the metric system, everything has a unit. So length is measured in meters, capacity is measured in liters, but the prefix, the centi or the milli or that sort of stuff is kind of set. So, and again, in class we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. So, but for now, we're just going to set up a proportion. So centiliters to liters is what we're interested in converting. And the one conversion factor that you have to know, or that will be given to you, is that 100 centiliters make 1 liter. So once you know that, you can use that to set up your proportion. So on the left side of the proportion here, we have that 800 centiliter needs to be converted to x liters. On the right side, you know that 100 centiliters is equivalent to 1 liter. So cross multiply to solve. We get 800 times 1 equals, cross multiply to solve, 100x. 800 times 1 is just 800. To solve for x, you divide by 100 on both sides. When you do that, you get that x equals 8. Remember, we were solving for liters. So we know that 800 centiliters is the same thing as 8 liters. In this last example, we're going to explore what happens when we don't have a direct conversion. So sometimes, and you may know this information, if we want to convert 2,880 minutes to days, a lot of people don't know that off the top of their head. They know two pieces of information though. They know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, and they also know that there are 24 hours in 1 day. So we're going to use both of those conversion factors together to do our jump from minutes to days. So the game plan here is to start off with minutes, convert those minutes to hours, and then take those hours and convert them to days. So let's start with the conversion from minute to hours. So set up your proportion here just like how you used to. Your proportion is going to be that 2,880 minutes is equivalent to x hours. And your conversion factor on the right, we're going to use this 60 minutes per hour factor, is that 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. Cross multiply this to solve. We get that 2,880 times 1, it's just 2,880, equals 60x. Solve for x by dividing both sides by 60. When we do that, we get that x equals 48 hours. So that's part of the solution. We now know that 2,880 minutes is 48 hours. But we still need to convert to days. So now we're going to do the conversion from 48 hours to days. The way you do that is you set up yet another proportion with the information you know. 48 hours. We want to convert that to x days. And the information that will help you do that is this right here, that 24 hours is equivalent to 1 day. Cross multiply to solve. And you get that 48 times 1 is 48 equals 24x. To solve for x, divide both sides by 24. You get that x equals 28 divided by 24 is 2 days. So what we finally did is the conversion that 2,880 minutes is equivalent to 2 days. We did that by converting first to hours and then finally 2 days.